Hello, my name is Ken Ferguson. If you have lived in the United States in the past several decades and have ever been exposed to some level of media, such as television, magazine, newspaper, or radio, you have undoubtedly been exposed to the controversy of the death penalty in America. There is extreme division among our society regarding this issue, usually based from some religious, personal, or political affiliation. This particular topic, when discussed, has caused venomous arguments and stirs heated debates. Capital punishment has been used throughout the world for centuries. The debate that I offer today: is the death penalty morally justified as America presents it to be, or a form of torture that is cruel and inhumane punishment? Either way, it is my belief that the death penalty should be discontinued and abolished. Capital punishment in the U.S. in practice applies only for aggravated murder and more rarely for felony murder. According to the Washington Post, as of April 1st, 2008, the death penalty is authorized by the U.S. military, the federal government, and 37 U.S. states. Those jurisdictions without the death penalty include Alaska, Hawaii, Iowa, Maine, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, New Jersey, North Dakota, Rhode Island, Vermont, West Virginia, and Wisconsin, and our nation's capital, the District of Columbia. As of January 1st, 2008, 3,350 convicted murderers were awaiting execution on death row in the U.S., including 44 on federal and military death rows. According to the Death Row Information Center, since the death penalty was reinstated in 1976, 1,373 convicted murderers have been executed in the U.S. as of April 1st, 2014, and the number of inmates on death row across the nation is 3,088. Those in favor of the death penalty consistently argue that those who commit the crime of murder warrants that their punishment should be to the same exact degree. It's the old saying, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Well, if you're a person who practices any religion, then shouldn't the death penalty be considered sinful? Is it not morally wrong to kill another human being regardless of the circumstances? Is it our job as humans to decide who lives or dies? We, as humans, do not create life, we procreate it. So if we do not create life, how do we legally justify that we are capable of taking a life? Let's examine some of the various forms of execution, starting with the electric chair. The electric chair is a quintessentially American invention. Thomas Edison petitioned for its first use, though his motives for doing so were less than pure. The world's first execution by electrocution took place in 1890, and it remained the most common form of execution until the 1980s. Death row inmates in 10 states may still choose the electric chair, and in recent years, 2 prisoners did exactly that, respectively in 2004 and 2006. Our society, however, has evolved to the lethal injection machine. Lethal injection, introduced in the early 1980s, is now the most prevalent form of capital punishment in the U.S. today. But this does not necessarily mean that it's the most civilized form of execution. As reported by PBS, a botched lethal injection occurred in Oklahoma on April 29th, 2014 of this year, of one Clayton Lockett, who confessed to shooting and burying alive a teenage girl in 1999. This particular story has capulated the issue of U.S. capital punishment back into the international spotlight, raising new questions about the drugs being used and the constitutional protection against cruel and unusual punishment. At first, Oklahoma prison officials suspected that a new drug competition caused Clayton Lockett to writhe in pain and clench his teeth during a botched execution. But a new autopsy reported that the IV was improperly placed by prison workers who may not have been properly trained to facilitate a lethal injection procedure. The death penalty worldwide has been greatly influenced by a group known as Amnesty International. They're a global movement of more than 3 million supporters, members, and activists in over 150 countries and territories who campaign tirelessly to end grave abuses of human rights around the world. They released a report on capital punishment in 2012, highlighting differing ways countries handle executions around the world. The US, which is fifth in the world for executions, takes a spot behind China, Iran, Iraq, and Saudi Arabia for the most executions in the world, sitting just ahead of Yemen and the Sudan. Also, according to Amnesty International, 139 countries have abolished the death penalty. In 2010, only one country, Gabon, Africa, abolished the death penalty for all crimes. Also during 2010, 23 countries executed 527 prisoners, and at least 2,024 people were sentenced to death in 67 countries. More than 17,833 people are currently under sentence of death row around the world. The methods of these executions included beheading, electrocution, hanging, lethal injection, and shooting. Countries retain that the death penalty defended their positions by claiming that the use of it is consistent with international human rights laws. Their actions blatantly contradict these claims. The death penalty is the ultimate denial of human rights. It is the premeditated and cold-blooded killing of a human being by a country or state. This cruel, inhumane, and degrading punishment is done in the name of justice. It violates the right to life as proclaimed in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Any human being, religious or not, could clearly state that the death penalty is immoral and unethical under any circumstances. Let me explain. If this law is fair, if you believe in killing killers, then why don't we rob robbers or rape rapists? Why don't we carjack a carjacker? Some would state that my examples are obscene, barbaric, uncivilized, inhumane, and outrageous. And that will be precisely my point. Murder is the only crime where a law exists that is of equal measure for the punishment. I, by all means, do not want to downplay the emotional anguish of any individual or family who has been wronged to the degree that some would say warrants this form of justice or punishment. I simply agree with the notion that every life has value, and that many opt to ignore this point, dismissing moral qualms altogether. For example, the Sentencing Project reported on July 18, 2010, that Pennsylvania, specifically Philadelphia, a city in which I grew up in, has more children in jail for life than any other state in the U.S., some as young as 14 years of age, serving life without the possibility of parole. Pennsylvania also has more juveniles serving life without parole than any other state in the world, some who made mistakes as teens that are still incarcerated to this day. Surely, morally, we have some obligation to respect the beliefs of others that are not our own, especially regarding such serious subject matters as the death penalty. I don't think that this debate will be finished anytime soon, as our country continues to weigh each scenario, circumstantially deciding whether who lives or dies. I pray that I am never in a situation that warrants me the gravity to have to make that decision. I'll continue to believe it's a divine choice. Thank you.